Welcome to Newarkian Videos for independent reporting and commentary. Here's today's story.
Hello, everyone. If you're new to the concept of school finance, I recommend starting with a brief YouTube video called Basic California School Finance that provides a solid introductory overview. A link is provided in the description of this video. Now, let's get straight to the point about NUSD's recent financial forecasts. The official narrative suggests they are facing significant financial challenges. However, as we examine the data more closely, we start seeing patterns that raise serious questions about the way the numbers are being presented. Financial analysis starts with annual performance tracking. Next comes reserve fund assessment. These are essentially the savings. We'll evaluate these reserves as well as restricted funds over multiple years. Comparative analysis provides context. We'll study peer districts' data to understand NUSD's financial situation in a broader perspective. We'll also analyze the district's forecasting results. Information presentation matters too. We'll review how financial data is reported and presented. Finally, we'll highlight the key findings from our examination. Looking at the chart's financial pattern from 2010 to 2024, we see the district moving through distinct phases. Early years showed moderate ups and downs, staying within a $3 million range either way. Then came a dramatic surge during COVID years, pushing surpluses to unprecedented levels and peaking at $11.2 million. Now in 2023-24, we're seeing a return to deficit territory at $0.6 million as COVID funding winds down, suggesting tighter financial conditions ahead. The magnitude of financial changes has grown dramatically, from fluctuations of $2 to $3 million pre-COVID to swings exceeding $15 million currently. There's an emerging pattern where substantial unrestricted gains are increasingly offset by restricted losses. The district's reserve position has undergone a remarkable transformation over the past decade. During 2010 to 2019, unrestricted reserves fluctuated between $2 to $6 million, while the Special Reserve Fund gradually decreased from $5 to $2.2 million. The most striking feature is the unprecedented growth starting in 2019 to 20. Unrestricted reserves nearly quadrupled from $6.2 to $22.5 million. Restricted balances saw even more dramatic growth, peaking at $14.2 million in 2022-23. The Special Reserve Fund has remained relatively stable at around $2.3 to $2.4 million. This dramatic growth in reserves, while providing substantial financial security, raises important strategic questions. What is the optimal reserve level for a district this size? How should these unprecedented reserves be strategically deployed to benefit students and support district employees while maintaining fiscal prudence? The current total balance of $36.3 million comprising of $22.5 million unrestricted, plus $2.4 million special reserves, and $11.4 million restricted, represents historically high levels that require careful stewardship and strategic planning. Looking at key financial metrics across neighboring districts, several interesting patterns emerge. But first, let's take a look at the average daily number of students present in the various districts. Fremont is by far the largest district and Newark the smallest in the sample we looked at. In terms of surplus deficit positions, for 2023-24, San Leandro, New Haven, and San Lorenzo demonstrate the strongest performance, maintaining surpluses above $3.5 million. In contrast, Hayward faces the most significant challenges with a deficit approaching $18 million, while Dublin, Fremont, and Milpitas, given their larger size, show moderate deficits. Examining total balances shows Fremont leading, though this reflects their larger student population. San Lorenzo and New Haven maintain strong positions at $90 million and $74 million respectively, with healthy proportions of unrestricted funds. While smaller, Newark demonstrates solid reserves. On a per-ADA basis, Hayward, San Lorenzo, and San Leandro lead in both revenue and expenditure, exceeding $20,000 per student. Dublin operates most efficiently at around $15,000 per student, while Newark maintains a balanced position with both revenue and expenditure near $18,000 per student. Let's examine NUSD's financial forecasting. Before diving in, it's important to understand the rhythm of school district financial reporting. Throughout the year, NUSD provides regular updates through a predictable cycle. September brings unaudited actuals, giving the first solid look at the previous year's numbers. December's first interim report provides initial adjustments. March's second interim refines those numbers further. June delivers estimated actuals along with the budget and forecast for future years. Let's examine NUSD's financial forecasting track record and how projections have compared to actual results. The solid black line in the first chart shows NUSD's actual total balance. Notice how it's grown dramatically since 2019, reaching over $35 million. But look at the colored lines below it. These represent the district's various projections. Each color tells us something important. The blue budget lines, red estimate lines, and the green and orange future projections all share one striking characteristic. They consistently predict financial decline. Yet year after year, these gloomy forecasts have proven wrong. Let's point out a few revenue elements that create pessimistic projections. Other local revenue and state revenue show a consistent pattern of underestimation. The district repeatedly budgets for $3 to $4 million in local revenue, yet actual amounts have grown steadily, reaching nearly $9 million. Similarly, state revenue actuals consistently exceed budgeted amounts by millions of dollars. However, the data shows that actual state revenue is less predictable, so a more conservative approach seems justified. By contrast, the services and operating expenditures line item is historically slightly underestimated. Recently, this expenditure has increased dramatically. Let's go into the details of two subcategories of services and operating expenditures. Sub-agreements for services directly support student instruction through third-party providers, while professional and consulting services and operating expenditures handle operational needs that keep the district running smoothly. Looking at restricted sub-agreements, we see dramatic growth from just 1.5% of expenditures in 2015 to over 11% in 2023-24. The actual dollar amounts have grown from under $1 million to about $9 million. This represents a significant concerning trend that warrants further analysis. Unfortunately, those details are not available in the unaudited actuals reports. At the same time, we see the unrestricted consulting expenditures have doubled in recent years, rising from around $1.5 million to $3 million. This raises more questions, but again, the financial reports do not provide more details. Now let's look at the restricted balance composition. In reviewing the top 5 items in the restricted balance for 2023-24, we note that the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant has disappeared from the budget. However, attention should be drawn to the fact that approximately 50% of restricted local funds are categorized as other restricted local without further detail. Standard financial reporting practices generally recommend more specific categorization when any single classification comprises such a substantial portion of restricted funds. In the 2024-25 budget and multi-year forecast, NUSD is projecting another dramatic decline, forecasting the total balance will plummet to around $3.4 million by 2026-27. Given the historical pattern we've just examined, we have to ask, is this a realistic projection, or are we seeing the same pattern of overly pessimistic forecasting? This matters because these projections directly influence critical decisions about staffing, programs, and resources for students. When forecasts consistently predict financial crises that don't materialize, it can lead to excessive budget cuts that impact classroom resources and educational quality. Moreover, these perpetual predictions of financial distress can significantly affect staff morale and recruitment. It's challenging to build and maintain a strong educational team when the district's own forecasts paint such a consistently dire picture of its financial future, despite years of evidence to the contrary? Let's now take a look how the district presents its financial information to the board and the public. If there is one term that stands out when NUSD's financial state is discussed, it's the $14 million structural deficit, which subsequently changed to $3.9 million without a clear explanation of the calculation changes. What started as a claim in a presentation has become accepted as fact through sheer repetition. Staff, board members, and even community members now use this term as if it's an undisputed truth, even though the numbers keep changing and the underlying calculations remain unclear. First, let's take a look at what the term structural deficit really means. A permanent fundamental gap between recurring revenue and recurring expenses. Let's examine this $14 million structural deficit claim more closely. The entire concept rests on a single chart showing 4 multi-year projection lines. Despite careful analysis of this data, the calculation method remains unclear. When board members requested clarification, the explanations provided little additional insight. Furthermore, the district seems to claim to take credit for, quote-unquote, saving $10 million. Remember, we are talking about multi-year forecasts, not actual realized numbers. This wasn't an isolated incident. Some time ago, the district announced a $10 to $11 million gap in its finances. The reasoning shifted from a calculator error to a journal entry issue, but again, no clear explanation was ever given. Adding to these concerns, the district has missed its December 15, 2024 audit submission deadline without any public explanation. Missing an audit deadline is a red flag and further indicates the district's transparency issues in this matter. Perhaps most telling is how financial information was presented during the first budget reduction meeting. There was an incident where even the presenter struggled to explain slides that obscured regular ending balances in favor of post-commitment figures. One would expect a correction, yet the subsequent meeting featured the same slides, with only a last-minute, barely legible insert attempting to show the actual ending balances. Presentations should be clear to both the public and board members, not confusing to even the presenters themselves. Needless to say, ending balances are fundamental to understanding any organization's financial health. As we conclude this analysis, the evidence speaks for itself. Let's review the key established facts. First, NUSD's actual financial performance tells a clear story. 5 out of 6 years showed a surplus, with only 1 year showing a modest $600,000 deficit. This pattern fundamentally contradicts any claim of a structural deficit. Second, the district's reserves have reached historic highs, with $25 million in unrestricted funds, representing more than 30% of the annual budget. While prudent reserves are important, especially for a smaller district facing enrollment challenges, maintaining such high reserves in low-interest-bearing county accounts raises questions about resource allocation. These funds exist to support education, not to accumulate interest. Third, comparative analysis with neighboring districts shows NUSD in a good financial position, ranking among the top districts in reserve percentages. However, 2 concerning patterns emerge. The district's forecasting consistently fails to provide accurate projections, with actual results repeatedly and significantly differing from predictions. More troubling is how financial information is presented to stakeholders. The inconsistent reporting methods, shifting metrics, and selective presentation of data make it unnecessarily difficult for the community to understand the district's true financial position. These findings suggest a need for more transparent, consistent, and accurate financial communication, one that builds trust through clarity rather than creating confusion through complexity. We have come to the end of this presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more future videos.